Here's the question nobody talks about. How do you follow up the most profitable comedy of 2000? A film that cost $19 million and made $278 million. With a sequel that almost didn't exist, got rushed into production before the first movie even finished its theatrical run, filmed inside a real historic estate, and still opened at number 1? Scary Movie 2 is the rare sequel greenlit out of panic, made under conditions that would have broken most productions, and still grossed $141 million worldwide. The behind-the-scenes story is, if anything, messier than the first one. You don't breathe, you just keep filming. Number 1. The sequel was greenlit before the first film finished its theatrical run. Scary Movie opened to $42.3 million in July 2000. Miramax didn't wait for the full box office picture to develop. Before the first film had been in theaters 3 weeks, a sequel was already in serious discussion. That's not confidence. That's institutional panic about leaving money on the table. The Wayans had very little time to exhale before they were back in development. Hollywood doesn't celebrate hits, it immediately tries to reproduce them. Number 2. Keenen Ivory Wayans agreed to return on one condition. Keenen came back to direct, but he extracted something in exchange: genuine creative control over the concept and execution. The studio wanted a faster, cheaper version of the first film. Same formula, lower risk, minimal deviation. Keenen pushed back. If it's going to have the Wayans name on it, it's going to be a Wayans film. He got his condition, at least partially. What creative control means at Miramax in 2001 is always a negotiation, not a guarantee. The tension between those two positions runs through the entire production. Number 3. The production schedule was even more compressed than the first film. Scary Movie was already famous for its brutal pace. The sequel was faster. Miramax wanted the film in theaters summer 2001, less than a year after the original opened. That's a runway that doesn't exist for most studio productions. Writers, cast, locations, and a shooting schedule all had to be locked in a window that would have been considered pre-production on a normal film. First takes becoming final takes wasn't just an aesthetic choice this time, it was often a logistical necessity. Number 4. The haunted house concept came from eliminating every other option. Parody sequels face a structural problem. You've already hit the obvious targets. Scream, I Know What You Did Last Summer, and The Blair Witch Project were the architecture of the first film. For the sequel, the writers went through the horror landscape methodically. What's left that's big enough to parody, specific enough to be funny, and broad enough that audiences will recognize every reference? The haunted house subgenre checked every box. The Haunting and House on Haunted Hill, both 1999, had underperformed critically. They were ripe. Nobody was defending them. Number 5. Tim Curry was cast as the wheelchair professor and immediately became the most dangerous person on set. The role of Professor Oldman, the deranged wheelchair-bound academic who orchestrates the haunted house disaster, needed someone who could be theatrical without winking too hard at the camera. Tim Curry, coming off years of horror-adjacent work and a reputation for total character commitment, was the call. He understood the assignment. Play it as if you're in the serious version of this film and let everything around you be the joke. Crew members have described scenes with Curry as controlled demolition. He was always precise, and the precision is what made everything else funnier by comparison. Number 6. Anna Faris almost didn't return. After the physical punishment of the first film and a midpoint crisis of confidence that Keenen pulled her through with a single conversation, Faris wasn't automatically signing on for a second round. The pitchback was simple. Cindy Campbell has more to do this time. More physical comedy, more sustained performance, more of the Cindy energy that had made the first film work beyond the gross-out gags. Faris came back. The argument that got her there was essentially, the first one proved you could do it. Now let's find out what else you can do. Number 7. Regina Hall's Brenda Meeks was upgraded specifically because of audience response. The theater scene from Scary Movie became arguably the most quoted moment in the film. Audiences didn't just laugh at it, they performed it. Theater chains were reportedly dealing with real Brenda Meeks imitators during screenings. Miramax and the Wayans tracked the cultural reaction closely enough that Hall's role in the sequel was substantially expanded before the script was locked. When something lands that hard, you don't course correct, you lean all the way in. Number 8. The film openly parodied What Lies Beneath and Poltergeist. Both studios knew. The clearances and reference negotiations on a parody film at this scale are more complicated than they appear. Some of the more elaborate set pieces, scenes clearly modeled on specific shots from What Lies Beneath and Poltergeist, required conversations between Miramax and the rights holders. The result was an unusual arrangement where competing studios were essentially signing off on being mocked. The alternative was litigation that nobody wanted. Number 9. Chris Elliott was cast because he broke every table read. Chris Elliott, who plays Hanson, the grotesque, large-handed caretaker who becomes one of the film's most memorable running gags, wasn't the first name on the list. Several other comedic actors were considered. Elliott came in, read the scenes, and destroyed the table read in a way that ended the conversation. His commitment to physical disgust was immediate and complete. The brothers made the call the same day. Number 10. The special hand prosthetic caused real production problems. Hanson's oversized hand isn't CGI. It's a practical prosthetic built by the film's makeup and effects team. The prop created genuine logistical issues on set. Scenes had to be choreographed around it. Certain takes required camera angles that obscured crew members, helping Elliott manage the prosthetic during quick movements. In sustained sequences, the hand would shift or require repositioning between takes, adding time to an already compressed schedule. Elliott has said wearing it for long shooting days was genuinely exhausting in a way that sounds impossible but makes complete sense once you see the prop. Number 11. James Woods was cast, then couldn't do it. James Woods was attached to play Father McFeely in the film's opening exorcism sequence. He had seen Scary Movie, wanted in on the sequel, and made the call himself. A film like this benefits from actors who are fully willing to be in on the joke. But Woods had to pull out before production, forcing a last-minute scramble to fill the role. The sequence sets the film's entire tone in its first 5 minutes. Losing the lead actor attached to it, that close to shooting, is the kind of production nightmare that doesn't make the press notes. Number 12. Marlon Wayans lobbied for the Exorcist parody specifically. The opening exorcism sequence is one of the film's biggest set pieces, and it exists largely because Marlon pushed for it. The timing was right for a reason. The Exorcist had just had its director's cut re-released theatrically in September 2000, reintroducing the film to a new generation and reminding everyone exactly how much it still worked as horror. Marlon's argument was simple. Everyone knows The Exorcist, even people who've never seen it. You can parody iconography, not just films. The sequence made it in. Number 13. The Wayans wrote the script during the promotional tour for the first film. There is no clean line between finishing one film and starting the next when the studio is that aggressive about the timeline. Sean and Marlon Wayans were doing press for Scary Movie, interviews, appearances, promotional obligations, while simultaneously developing the sequel's script. Writing sessions happened on planes, in hotel rooms, between commitments. By the time the first film's theatrical run was winding down, significant portions of the sequel already existed. The brothers have described it as writing while running, because that's exactly what it was. Number 14. The film shot on location at a real historic estate. Rather than building a haunted house on a backlot, production used an actual location, the Hellman Kwan Mansion in Los Angeles. a historic estate that would later appear in projects like Charmed. A real building doesn't have wild walls, can't be modified for camera angles, and has structural realities a purpose-built set doesn't. Crew members have recalled navigating original fixtures, period flooring, and rooms that couldn't be altered without clearance from the property's administrators. But the location gave the film an atmosphere that painted flats and fake wood simply cannot replicate. Authenticity has a look. Number 15. Tori Spelling was cast through mutual interest. Spelling's career in 2001 was in a specific kind of cultural flux, defined by Beverly Hills 90210, but searching for what came next. She was aware of exactly how her public image functioned and was actively looking for ways to play with it rather than against it. When the Scary Movie 2 approach came, it mapped perfectly onto that. Same logic as Carmen Electra in the first film. The joke works better when the actor understands they're playing a version of their own persona. Spelling got it immediately. The self-awareness is doing most of the work. Number 16. Shawn Wayans performed his own stunt work in several sequences. Stunt coordinators on Scary Movie 2 have noted that Shawn pushed for personal involvement in physical scenes where most actors would defer entirely to doubles. The reasoning wasn't bravado, it was comedic timing. Physical comedy is about the gap between expectation and result, and that gap is harder to control when a double is doing the work. Shawn argued, and the coordinators mostly agreed, that certain gags only worked if he was actually in them. The trade-off was a production insurance headache the studio was not entirely thrilled about. Number 17. The film's original ending tested poorly and was reshot. Test screenings are the great equalizer of studio comedy. Scary Movie 2's initial ending didn't land. The finale felt flat in a way that wasn't fixable in the edit. Reshoots were ordered. On a timeline already stretched to its limit, finding days to go back was a significant logistical problem. They found the days. The reshoot produced the version in the film, a bigger, broader, more committed conclusion that the test audience responded to. Reshoots have a bad reputation. Sometimes they fix the actual problem. Number 18. The budget was larger than the first film, and still considered low for a major summer sequel. Scary Movie cost $19 million. The sequel came in around $45 million, more than double, which sounds like significant investment until you compare it to what other summer 2001 comedies were spending. That budget created continued constraints. Practical effects over digital, compressed schedule, minimal safety net for overages. The Wayans were working well below the resources most comparable films had. The studio had decided the first film's production budget was the reference point, not the genre standard. Number 19. The film opened at number 1 despite mixed reviews. Critics were not kind to Scary Movie 2. The consensus was that the first film's anarchic energy had been partially smoothed out, that the sequel was working harder for its laughs and getting fewer of them. Audiences largely disagreed. The film opened to $20.6 million its first weekend and crossed $141 million globally. Reviews and box office results tell different stories about different things. Critics measure craft, audiences measure whether they had a good time. Scary Movie, 2 audiences had a good time. The numbers are clear on that. Number 20, Keenan walked away from the franchise, but the exit wasn't as clean as it looked. After the sequel, Keenan was done. Scary Movie 3 went to David Zucker. From the outside, it looked like an orderly handoff. But Marlon Wayans has stated in later interviews that Harvey and Bob Weinstein effectively forced the family out. That the franchise was taken from them through aggressive studio control of the IP, not a mutual exit. What left with the Wayans wasn't just a director, it was the unfiltered raunchiness, the instinct for cultural timing, the willingness to go further than comfortable. The franchise continued, the particular energy did not. Number 21. Several cast members had to be replaced due to scheduling conflicts from the accelerated timeline. When you announce production before the script is locked, you run into calendar problems. Actors who expressed early interest had moved on to other commitments by the time production was ready to move. Several roles were recast not because of creative differences, but because the timeline was too compressed to accommodate anyone with an existing commitment. It's a specific kind of chaos that only happens when a studio forces a production calendar before a production actually exists. Number 22. Ghostface doesn't appear in the sequel, and the reason is partly about money. Ghostface, the visual centerpiece of the first film, is absent from Scary Movie 2. Part of that was creative. The haunted house concept required new threats and new visual language. But part of it was licensing. The Ghostface mask is owned by Funworld, and with the sequel moving to a completely different subgenre, the production had no reason to pay licensing fees for a character who didn't fit the new theme. The creative decision and the financial decision pointed in the same direction. Ghostface stayed home. Number 23. The film's legacy lives in a specific kind of affection that critics never gave it. Scary Movie 2 is not the first film. It's louder in some places and thinner in others, and it knows it. What it is a document of a specific filmmaking approach pushed past its natural limits by institutional pressure and time constraints, and still functioning, still funny, still unmistakably the product of the people who made it. The audience who grew up with it doesn't need critics to validate the experience. They were there. They remember exactly which scene made them lose it in the theater. That's not a critical category. That's just what it means to be someone's movie. "20+ years on, Scary Movie 2 holds a specific place. Not the miracle the first one was, but proof that the miracle wasn't entirely accidental. The same people, the same instincts, under worse conditions, still made something that $141 million worth of ticket buyers showed up for. Drop the fact that surprised you most in the comments. And if you know something we missed, we're listening.